When the helicopter lifted off, Michael was still smiling. He was standing by the door of the small tourist cabin, holding the gloves he had forgotten inside. The metal of the door was cold under his fingers, but he did not notice it. At that moment, nothing felt dangerous, nothing felt wrong. The expedition had been perfectly organized. 10 days on the coldest continent on Earth. 10 days of ice fields, research stations, endless white horizons. 10 days that were supposed to end with a calm flight back to South America. Michael had checked his watch twice that morning. There was still time. There was always time. Inside the cabin, the heater was still running. A soft, mechanical hum, almost comforting. He bent down, turned the switch off, and stood there for a second longer than necessary, just enjoying the strange silence that exists only in Antarctica. When he opened the door again, the wind hit his face. The landing zone was empty. For a brief moment, he thought the helicopter had simply moved to another position. He walked forward. Then he heard the sound, the deep, accelerating roar of engines. He looked up. The helicopter was already rising, not slowly, not hesitating. It was leaving. Michael froze. His brain refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. This could not be happening. This was a mistake. Someone would notice him any second now. He ran. His boots slid on the ice. He nearly fell, regained balance, and ran again. He waved his arms. He screamed until his throat burned, but the wind swallowed every sound. In the white storm, a human being is invisible. The helicopter climbed higher, turned slightly, and disappeared into the clouds. 30 seconds later, the sky was empty. No sound, no movement, only endless white. Michael stood alone in the middle of the landing zone, breathing heavily, his heart beating so loud he could hear it inside his own head. At first he laughed, a short, nervous laugh. They would come back. Of course they would come back. This was just a misunderstanding. He waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. And then, slowly, the meaning of what had happened began to sink in. The expedition had left, without him, in Antarctica, on a continent where a single mistake is often enough to kill a person. And somewhere, thousands of kilometers away, 9 people were already celebrating the end of their journey, believing that everyone was safe, believing that no one had been forgotten. When the silence finally became unbearable, Michael forced himself to move. Standing still was dangerous. Not physically, yet, but mentally. He turned away from the empty sky and walked toward the main cluster of cabins. The tourist settlement had looked alive just a few hours earlier. Now it felt like a place abandoned for decades. Snow was already drifting across the landing zone, slowly erasing footprints. The wind pushed thin streams of ice along the ground like ghosts. The first cabin was locked. He tried the door once, twice, nothing. He walked to the second, locked. The third, locked. Only the small storage module near the edge of the camp was open. Inside, the air smelled of fuel and cold metal. Shelves lined the walls. Boxes, old equipment, emergency supplies left for short-term use. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it, trying to slow his breathing. This was not panic yet. This was something colder, a calculation. He searched every corner of the module. A small diesel generator, several fuel canisters, an emergency radio, dismantled with cables removed. No batteries, no satellite phone. The guides had taken everything portable, everything valuable, everything that could save a man. He went back outside and walked through the settlement again, more carefully this time. 3 sleeping cabins, 1 dining module, 1 storage unit, no active station, no permanent staff. This was not a research base. This was only a temporary tourist camp, designed for short visits, not for survival. He opened one of the sleeping cabins. Inside, 4 narrow beds, thin mattresses, sleeping bags, a small electric heater fixed to the wall. Cold already filled the room. He checked the control panel. Power, off. Generator, disconnected, no heating. He closed the door and stood outside again. For the first time, he allowed himself to ask the question he had avoided since the helicopter disappeared. How long until the next flight? He searched through the documents left in the dining module, schedules, logs, tourist checklists. Finally, in a corner of a clipboard, he found the answer. Next planned expedition arrival in 90 days. 90, not 9, not 15, 90, 3 full months. Michael sat down on a wooden bench and stared at the number. 90 days in Antarctica, alone, without communication, without guaranteed heat, without guaranteed food. The settlement was silent around him, and for the first time, a single clear thought appeared in his mind. If I make one wrong decision, I will die here. The first night came faster than he expected. In Antarctica, daylight and darkness lose their normal meaning. The sky only grows dimmer, the shadows longer, the cold sharper. Michael chose the smallest sleeping cabin. Less space meant less heat to lose. He dragged all the supplies he could find into one room: canned food, dry rations, water bottles, blankets, a small toolkit. Then he sat on the floor and began to count. Slowly, carefully, as if counting could protect him from reality. 42 cans of meat, 16 dry military rations, 1 sack of rice, a few chocolate bars, water, about 120 liters, fuel, enough for maybe 2 weeks of short generator use, if the generator even worked. He wrote the numbers down. Then he wrote one more number at the top of the page: days. He divided everything by 90. The result was brutal. 1 small meal per day, 1 liter of water per day. No mistakes allowed. Even then, the food would end long before the time did. He closed the notebook. Outside, the wind began to rise. He tried to start the generator. It coughed, shook, and finally came to life. The heater slowly warmed the cabin. He allowed himself exactly 30 minutes of electricity. No more. When he turned the generator off, the silence rushed back instantly. He lay down in full clothing. Boots on, jacket zipped, hat pulled low. The sleeping bag felt thin. The walls felt too close. The cold crept in from every direction. That night, he did not sleep. He listened to the wind, to the metal creaking, to his own heartbeat. Every hour he checked his watch. Every hour the same thought returned. Somewhere, thousands of kilometers away, people believed he was safe. And here, on the coldest continent on Earth, one man was trying to survive his very first night. Morning came without light. Only a slightly paler shade of gray behind the frosted window told Michael that a new day had begun. He sat up slowly, every muscle stiff from cold and fear. For a few seconds, he did not remember where he was. Then the silence reminded him. He boiled a small cup of water and ate half a dry ration, exactly what he had planned. No more, no less. After that, he returned to the notebook. He needed a real plan, not hope, not optimism, a system. He drew a long line across the page, 90 small marks, 1 for each day. Then he began to design his life. Daylight hours, inspection of the camp. Midday, melting snow, checking supplies. Evening, generator for 30 minutes. Night, no movement, no waste of energy. He wrote new rules. Never eat when emotional. Never use fuel during the day. Never leave the camp in bad weather. Never skip writing. Writing was not a hobby. Writing was proof that he was still thinking clearly. He tested the emergency radio. Dead. He tried to fix it. No power source, no spare batteries. The outside world no longer existed. By the afternoon, he had explored every building again. Nothing new. No hidden phone, no forgotten satellite device, only cold, metal, and snow. At sunset, he went outside and stood in the middle of the camp. No tracks, no movement, no horizon, only an endless white desert. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine the worst. Not dying dramatically, not freezing in a storm, but something quieter, making a small mistake, losing too much heat, sleeping too deeply one night, and simply not waking up. He returned to the cabin and wrote, Day 2. The danger is not the cold. The danger is time. By the end of the first week, Michael lived like a machine. Every action had a purpose. Every movement was calculated. He woke up at the same hour every day, checked the temperature inside the cabin, checked the fuel level, checked the food inventory. He limited himself to 1 simple meal per day, rice or dry ration, always the same portion. Sometimes he stared at the cans of food for a long time before closing the box again. Not today, not yet. He trained his body to accept hunger. Hunger became a background noise, like the wind, like the silence. He exercised lightly to keep his muscles alive. Push-ups, slow squats, short walks around the camp, never more than necessary. Sweat was dangerous. Wet clothes meant lost heat. Every evening, he ran the generator, exactly 30 minutes. He charged a small flashlight, warmed the room slightly, checked the heater, then darkness again. The hardest rule was isolation. He forced himself not to think about his family, not about his wife, not about home. Those thoughts weakened him. Instead, he treated each day as a technical task. Survive today, that is all. On day 11, the first real problem appeared. The heater began to make a strange, clicking sound, intermittent, unreliable. He disassembled it with shaking hands. Dust, corrosion, old wiring. He repaired what he could, but he understood the message. Nothing here was built for long-term use. Everything here was temporary, including him. That night, he wrote, "If equipment fails, I will fail with it." Day 19. The heater stopped working completely. No warning, no noise, just silence. The temperature inside the cabin dropped quickly. -5, -8, -10. He tried to restart it for hours. Nothing. He moved closer to the generator, pulled the starter cord once, twice, 10 times. The generator coughed, then died. Now there was no heat at all. He felt panic for the first time. Real panic, not fear, not anxiety, panic. He tore apart the heater, burned his fingers, cut his hand, did not feel the pain. By evening, the temperature inside reached -12. He dragged wooden crates into the room, broke them apart, built a small makeshift stove, lit it. For the first time, he used open fire inside the cabin. Smoke filled the room. He opened the window for a few seconds, lost precious heat, but the fire worked. Weak, dirty, dangerous, but warm. He sat in front of it for hours, staring into the flames. His hands were shaking, not from cold, from realization. If one more system failed, there would be no backup, no reserve, no second chance. That night, he did not write. He only sat in the dark, listening to the fire crackle, and thinking one single thought again and again: this place is trying to kill me. By day 27, the silence changed. At first, Michael thought he was imagining it. A soft sound, almost like footsteps. He was sitting on his bed, writing in the notebook, when he heard it. A slow crunch, as if someone had stepped on snow just outside the cabin. He froze, listened. Nothing. He told himself it was the wind, but that night he heard it again. 3 slow steps. A pause. Then nothing. He grabbed the flashlight and opened the door. Outside, the world was empty. No tracks, no movement, only drifting snow. He closed the door and locked it. After that, the sounds became more frequent, sometimes scratching, sometimes a low knock. Once, he was certain he heard a human cough. He began to check the door every hour. He slept less, much less. Sleep became dangerous. When he slept too deeply, he dreamed of voices calling his name. Michael, soft, close. He started talking to himself during the day. Not long conversations, short phrases, instructions. Stand up. Slowly. Careful. He needed to hear a human voice, even if it was his own. On day 34, he took out the photograph of his wife. He placed it on the table and spoke to it. Told her what he had done that day. Told her what he planned to do tomorrow. When he finished, he felt ashamed, but also calmer. That night, he wrote, "I am no longer alone. There are voices now, and I am afraid of them." By day 40, his body was changing. His face had become sharp, cheeks hollow, eyes sunken. He had lost more than 10 kilograms. Standing up too fast made the world spin. His hands trembled constantly. Hunger was no longer painful. It was something deeper, a weakness that lived inside his bones. One morning, while melting snow, he suddenly dropped the pot. It fell to the floor. He stared at it for a long time, unable to understand why his hand had opened. He picked it up, tried again. This time he was careful, but fear remained, fear of losing control over his own body. He reduced movement even more. No exercises, no unnecessary walks, only essential actions. But even that was too much. On day 43, he went outside to clear snow from the door. After 10 minutes, his vision darkened. He fell to his knees. The world went silent. For a moment, he thought he had died. When he woke up, his face was pressed against the snow. He lay there, breathing slowly, afraid to move. Finally, he crawled back inside. That evening, he ate a full ration, breaking his own rule, not from hunger, from fear. That night, he dreamed of a hospital, bright lights, warm air, voices. When he woke up, the cold felt sharper than ever. He wrote, "My body is becoming my enemy. I must finish before it does." On day 58, the sky changed, not suddenly, gradually. The horizon disappeared. The air became heavy. Even the wind sounded different, lower, angrier. Michael had seen storms before, but never like this. He secured every loose object outside, reinforced the door with rope, moved all supplies into the smallest room. He prepared for isolation. When the storm hit, it was violent. Wind screamed around the cabin. Snow struck the walls like bullets. The building shook. All sound disappeared under the roar of the storm. By the second day, snow blocked the entrance. He could no longer open the door. The temperature inside dropped to -20. He sat in the sleeping bag, fully dressed, not moving. Moving wasted heat. Thinking wasted strength. He counted his breaths. 1, 2, 3. Time lost meaning. At some point, he realized his fingers were numb, then his toes. He rubbed them slowly, carefully, afraid of frostbite. On the third night, the fire went out. He did not relight it. He did not have the strength. He accepted something new, not panic, not fear, acceptance. If this was the end, it would be quiet. He closed his eyes and waited. He woke up because he could not feel his left hand. At first, he thought he was still dreaming. The pain was distant, muted, as if it belonged to someone else. He lifted his hand in front of his face. The fingers were pale, almost white. He touched them. No sensation, only pressure. Frostbite. The word appeared in his mind calmly, without panic, without fear. He understood immediately what it meant. If he lost his fingers, he would lose the ability to survive. Open cans, light fire, write. And then, very slowly, he would die. He pressed his hand against his chest, under his jacket, skin to skin. He breathed slowly. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, pain returned, sharp, burning. He bit his lip. Pain meant blood. Blood meant life. By morning, his fingers were red and swollen, still alive, barely. He tried to stand. His legs failed. He fell back onto the bed. For a long time, he simply lay there, breathing, counting heartbeats. He realized something terrifying. He was no longer fighting the cold. He was fighting exhaustion, and exhaustion was winning. That day, he did not write, he did not eat, he did not move. For the first time, he allowed the thought to fully form. I may not leave this place alive, and the thought did not scare him. It only felt final. Day 81. He no longer knew the exact date, the notebook told him. He took it in his hands and stared at the last written page. His handwriting had changed, shaking, uneven, weak. He opened a new page and began to write, not a diary, a message, for whoever might come here, for whoever might find his body. He wrote about the helicopter, about the mistake, about the days, about the cold, about the voices. He did not blame anyone. He did not ask for justice. He only described what had happened, because truth was the last thing he still controlled. When he reached the end of the page, he wrote slowly, "If you are reading this, it means I did not disappear. It means I existed, and I tried." He closed the notebook, placed it carefully on the table, straightened it, as if someone would judge the order of the room. Then he lay down, fully dressed, boots on, jacket zipped, as he had done on the first night. For the first time, he did not plan tomorrow. He only closed his eyes and waited. He woke up because of a sound. At first, he thought it was another hallucination, a low hum, very distant. He ignored it. Then he heard it again, stronger, different from the wind. His heart began to beat faster. He stood up, almost fell, opened the door. The cold hit him, but he did not feel it. Above the white horizon, a small black dot moved slowly across the sky. He stared at it, not believing, not trusting. The dot grew larger, the sound grew louder. A helicopter. He ran, barefoot, without jacket. He waved his arms, screamed, fell, stood up again. For one terrible second, the helicopter continued forward, not turning, not slowing. And in that second, he understood how close he was to disappearing forever. Then, the helicopter turned, changed direction, and began to descend. Michael fell to his knees, not from cold, from relief. When they reached him, he could not speak. He only whispered one word, late. They lifted him into the helicopter, wrapped him in blankets, connected oxygen. When the door closed, the noise disappeared, and for the first time in 3 months, he was warm. Later, the investigation revealed the truth. The final head count had been done formally. Michael's name had been checked automatically. No one had visually counted the people. The tourist camp was closed permanently. New rules were introduced. Manual counting, double verification, no exceptions. Months later, Michael returned home. He never gave interviews. He never told the story publicly, but he kept the notebook. And on the last page, under his old message, he added one final line: "Someone came."